Thank you so much for joining us for a To The Point ABC 10 election special. I'm Alex Bell, and we are just days away from the March 5th California primary. And your voice matters in helping decide critical races across the state and in your cities. So throughout this show, you can scan the QR code on your screen to view an extensive voter guide and links to all the stories that you're about to see. Let's start with your ballots. Every California voter should receive a vote by mail ballot. They were already mailed out, and counties are already verifying ballot signatures on ballots that have been mailed back or even dropped off. Now, you have until March 5th to drop it off at an election office, a drop-off location, or mail it in. Vote centers are open right now if you want to go ahead and drop off your ballot. But if you haven't even registered to vote yet for the primary election, don't worry, there is still time to do so. So you can always do so at your county elections office. You can also do it at a vote center. And you might be wondering, what is the difference between a polling place and a vote center? A few key differences here. Vote centers allow you to solve voter registration issues. You can also register to vote, or you can get a replacement ballot. So if you messed it up or you lost it, you can go vote in person and they will count your vote that same day. Now, if you have any questions, you can always check your voter information guide. This has already gone out in the mail through the elections office, so you should already have it. As for what's on your primary ballot, here's Brandon Ritteman with more on the only statewide Proposition 1.
Prop 1 is about government spending on mental health. It has the power to decide how your tax dollars are spent on mental health for the next 30 years. And right off the bat, I need you to know what California is doing here wouldn't be legal in a lot of states. Scheduling a proposition during a primary election instead of in November means much lower voter turnout to decide the question. The buck stops with your state senator and assembly person on that. Lawmakers put Prop 1 on your March primary ballot. That lower turnout does come with a silver lining. Your vote, should you choose to cast one, has more power to decide the outcome. Prop 1 is a proposed law that has two parts. It has new state spending, and it changes existing spending on mental health. Let's take the new money first. Prop 1 would have the state borrow and spend $6.4 billion. $2 billion of that is aimed at homelessness. That'll go into a state program that uses existing hotels and motels to house people. It also builds some new housing units. The bigger slice would pay for new facilities for mental health and addiction treatment. How many places? What kind? I can't tell you. If voters approve Prop 1, those decisions would be made later. $6.4 billion of bonds costs billions of dollars to borrow. This is the government's version of taking out a 30-year mortgage. The payments plus interest, about $310 million a year, according to the state analysts. How do we pay it? Prop 1 has no new taxes. In fact, it has no plan at all to pay these bonds. These payments would come out of the state's regular budget, something that lawmakers would have to figure out later. Add up all those payments, and the $6.4 billion plus interest could cost taxpayers $9.3 billion over the next 3 decades. That's not set in stone. Interest rates do change, and lately they're up. That was the borrow and spend part. Remember, Prop 1 does have another part. It changes existing mental health spending. 20 years ago, Californians passed a millionaire tax to fund mental health. It raises a few $1 billion a year. Prop 1 wouldn't change the size of this tax, but it would change where it goes. Almost all of this money goes to counties right now. All the county governments in California get 95%. The state government gets 5%. Prop 1 would double the state's share, a 90-10 split. That's about $140 million more for the state and less for the counties each year. This is supposed to pay for state programs to prevent mental illness and addiction, also to hire more mental health care workers. Prop 1 also enacts new rules on the money counties get. Counties would have to spend more of their money on housing and support services like job searching and education, but that could take money away from other services like treatment, crisis care, and outreach to struggling people. A yes vote makes all of those rule changes and borrows the $6.4 billion in state bonds. A no vote on Prop 1 means that the laws stay on the books the same way they are now. I'm only here to explain what your vote means, not to convince you how to vote. There is a big debate over Prop 1 and its impact, and if you're on the fence, you can read the basic arguments written by both sides in your official state voter guide. You've got till 8 p.m. March 5th, that's primary election day, to make up your mind. I'm Brandon Rittiman. Thanks for caring about your vote.
All right, thank you, Brandon. The California primary is known as a jungle primary. In candidate races, unless one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote in the March primary, the top two vote getters will advance to the general election in November. And now this year, if you live in the city of Sacramento, you will get to choose a new mayor. Mayor Steinberg is not running for re-election, and one of 6 candidates will replace him. Becca Habegger spoke with all 6 candidates, and here are their views about tackling crime.
Back in October, Sacramento Police Chief Kathy Lester announced the city's violent crime rate is dropping toward pre-pandemic levels.
Our public safety is really a collective and a shared responsibility.
She credited partnerships between the police department and grassroots community-based organizations. But that same month, the National Retail Federation ranked the Sacramento area 7th in the nation for organized retail crime. As state lawmakers craft legislation to crack down on repeat offenders, ABC 10 asks the 6 Sacramento mayoral candidates who qualified for the March 5th primary ballot what they would do as mayor to address crime. Kevin McCarty is a state assembly member representing Sacramento and a former Sacramento City Council member.
It's an issue that we need to address. Frankly, I'm doing it right now in my day job. As your assembly member, I'm chairing the Public Safety Committee, authoring legislation right now to bring about needed reforms for repeat retail theft and drug use related to Prop 47. We're doing the reforms with issues like mental health, conservatorships, issues that community members see on a daily basis. So interestingly enough, in my last year in the legislature, I'm going to be authoring bills and bringing solutions to make my job easier when I am mayor of Sacramento.
Dr. Flo Kofer is a public health professional who has served on various city and county committees and boards.
I'm really interested in looking to see how can we invest in prevention and then also allow our police department to be able to do the response and recognize also that we may need to diversify who the responders are so we get the best outcome. We don't want to just punish people after the fact, although we certainly don't want to just accept that crime is happening. But instead, what we want to do is focus on what are the root causes of this and how can we prevent it. And part of that is making sure that we have living wage jobs in this region, making sure that people can afford to live here and are not, subject to struggling to survive.
Steve Hansen is a small business owner and former Sacramento City Council member.
We need to be more responsive, but our police department's not fully staffed. So our response times aren't what the public expects. Restaffing our police department, making sure that we're not burning people out and we're providing high quality public safety. Those are my goals, and that's what's going to put the city back on track. I'm proud to be supported by our officers here in Sacramento, by the sheriff's deputies, probation officers, because they know I'm serious about helping people. Sometimes people need to be in a correctional process to get the help they need, but also a city can't be successful if it's not safe.
Dr. Richard Pan is a pediatrician and former state senator and assembly member.
I'm proud to be endorsed by our district attorney, Tien Ho, because he knows I will be a good partner for him in addressing crime. He needs a mayor, and our police chief needs a mayor who is going to have their back. Part of what we need to do is send the signal to people that we want to keep our city clean. We want to partner with communities, right? To give people opportunities, to engage our youth in ways so that they are not drawn into activities that might pull them into crime as well.
Jose Antonio Avina II is a captain in the U.S. Marine Corps and personal trainer.
In terms of the retail theft, it's organized crime. And that's another thing that we have to look at in how the police department's set up to counter those measures. When we look at crime and theft, it really comes down to lack of opportunity within those communities. There would be no reason for anyone to go and steal something if they had the ability and the means to go and purchase them themselves. So obviously we're failing our community as well.
Julius Engel is an asset protection manager. He previously worked as an attorney but was disbarred in 2020 for professional misconduct.
Right now, I do big box security. I'm involved with retail crime and preventing it with what I do now. And I have an extensive law enforcement background. I was military police in the military for 7 years. I was Roseville Police for 9 years, correctional officer for 6. So I back the police department 100%, the sheriff's department 100%. We just have to go back to good policing, good police communications with the community, and that's been better than ever. We just need more of it.
And we want to help you feel informed and confident as you vote for Sacramento's next mayor. And we sat down with all 6 candidates and also asked them how they would address the crisis of homelessness and affordable housing. You can scan the QR code on your screen to watch their full interviews on abc10.com/elections. Sacramento City Council seats are also up for grabs. We sat down with all of these 9 candidates running for District 2. You can find their interviews on abc10.com/elections. Still ahead on this To The Point election special, the race for president. What you can do if you don't see the race on your ballot. Plus, all 6 candidates are asking for your vote to become Stockton's next mayor. We sit down with each of them. And then later in the show, what your vote could be critical in deciding who controls Congress. Welcome back to a To The Point election special. If you received your vote by mail ballot and it does not have a presidential candidate, it's likely because you're registered as a non-party preference voter. The Yolo County Registrar of Voters says there is a way that you can change your ballot and vote for a presidential candidate.
To either request a crossover ballot or they need to be able to re-register for that particular party.
So do not worry if you are registered as a non-party preference. There is still time to make changes to your voter registration. So here's the deal. If you want to vote for a presidential candidate, the Secretary of State's office says that you must request a ballot with a presidential candidate from either the American Independent Party, Democratic Party, or Libertarian Party. And you can request a replacement ballot by submitting a no party preference crossover ballot application to your county election office. Or if you vote in person, ask a poll worker for a ballot with one of those 3 parties when you check in. Now, if you want to vote for the Green, Peace and Freedom, or Republican parties, you must re-register with that specific party, and you can do that in person at a polling place, vote center, or your county elections office. Next on the To The Point election special, Stockton's mayoral race, what each candidate would do about homelessness and crime. And in our current political climate, what local election offices are doing to keep workers safe. Welcome back to a To The Point election special. If you're living in the city of Stockton, you have a chance to choose your next mayor. 6 candidates are asking for your vote, and our Gabriel Porras introduces us to the candidates and what they would do about homelessness and crime.
6 Stockton residents.
My name is Shaquille Ahmed.
My name is Jesus Andrade.
Christina Fugazi.
Jessica Velez.
Dan Wright.
Tom Patty. All vying to be the next mayor, and all with a different top issue they hope will resonate with voters this March.
Top issue, of course, public safety and the unsheltered homeless are right there and they're synonymous.
Corruption and incompetence has to be addressed here in Stockton.
Top issue for me is homelessness. I think that spreads over into so many different avenues of concern in the city.
I would say public safety has to be first.
It's economic development. We have had a declining economy here locally. We've had jobs that have come in through warehousing, but overall the economy has sort of been depressed here.
The most common issues, as we all know, the first one is homelessness.
On any given night in Stockton, 893 people are without shelter. County Supervisor Tom Patty and former Stockton City Councilman Jesus Andrade favor a shelter-first stance and support having resources at the shelters to rehabilitate the homeless.
Let's reclaim our streets. Let's have safe sanctuaries for people to go to so that they're regionally located in all of our major cities. We're not transplanting anybody, but let's get them into support services.
We have to be creative and look at all options, because we need to be able to help our law enforcement and first responders to be able to move folks from the street over to temporary shelter, which is the first thing. And the next thing is permanent housing.
Councilman Dan Wright and former Councilwoman Christina Fugazi support more shelter beds and prefer to see more housing in certain cases if possible.
So that has to be one of the things that we need to fast track in order to get people off the street. The other thing is we need more housing for those that don't fall into one of those categories.
We have to keep looking for solutions. Housing first is a goal, but if housing first isn't working, then by all means, let's use every option we have. But shelters are important. Housing is the desire, because that way you can have that wraparound support on the grounds.
For Jessica Velez, the founder of a homeless nonprofit advocacy organization, and business owner Shaquille Ahmed, it's about having more resources for the homeless and outreach workers.
I definitely want to see a transitional village started here. It is low cost and it allows people to stand on their own feet as opposed to continuing the handouts the shelter model.
I can hire some social workers who can train those volunteers or the task force, you know. So what they're going to do is they will go talk to these homeless people and motivate them to come to the shelters.
As for addressing crime,
I'm going to send all these teams to different areas, the red tag areas, and have them monitored on. And then also I'll request, you know, like, I mean, all the residents, you know, of those areas, and have them work with us, communicate with us, but like the response should be fast from our side also, from the police department also.
Believe it or not, you know, there's, you know, issues, not issues, but conversations about whether police do help reduce crime or not. A full force does, but it's not the only solution. The other thing that we did during that time is we had a well-run Office of Violence Prevention. We're following the Marshall Plan.
The Stockton Police Department's most recent crime data shows an increase of 812 crimes from 2021 to 2022. The department is dealing with a staffing shortage, reporting 360 officers on the force in July 2023, despite being authorized to have 485.
We don't have those officers, which is why the chief said we were going to Code Blue, and I felt that that was kind of like a free pass for people doing low-level crimes to get away with it. And here's the bottom line for me. Our officers have a tough job, but we need to enforce the law, period. End of sentence.
What I see and what I've discussed with other people in office currently, the lack of communication is what is really slowing progress for Stockton, and that's between city and county, listening to our police officers that are boots on the ground. They have great ideas and they have great suggestions.
Mayor of Stockton is part of the Big City Mayors Coalition. And it's access to the governor that only 13 mayors have. And I promise you, I would use that to help drive policy at the state of California level.
If we can partner with the private industry and create a job training program that's a gateway to local jobs, I am certain will lessen the crime. You start to lessen your graffiti. You start to lessen some of the local disparities and hardships that many people will experience until they have an opportunity to earn a paycheck.
Now, candidates also address the quality of life in Stockton and why they think they'd be best for the job. So to watch those full interviews, head to our website, abc10.com/election. Remember, the race could be decided on March 5th if one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote. Otherwise, the top two vote getters will advance to the November election. Given our current political climate, there is concern about keeping election workers safe. Some local offices are upgrading their security right now. And after threats of fentanyl being mailed to election offices, officials are supplying Narcan, rubber gloves, and other protective gear to workers. In 2021, the Department of Justice created the Threats Against Election Workers Task Force in response to the significant increase in the threat of violence against election offices. In their first year alone, they've reviewed more than 1,000 contacts that allegedly harassed election workers. So far, the task force has prosecuted 13 federal cases, a majority of them ending in guilty pleas or sentencings. And you can watch my full story on keeping election workers safe on our website, abc10.com/elections. Still ahead, why your vote could be critical in deciding who controls Congress. Welcome back. Our primary election is on Tuesday, March 5th, and we're not the only ones that day voting. 15 states and one territory will vote. It's what's known as Super Tuesday. You see the states on your screen. Super Tuesday is the day in the presidential primary cycle when the most states vote. Super Tuesday could also give some insight into who will gain control of Congress. In California, voters will choose who goes to the U.S. Senate to replace the late Dianne Feinstein. Right now, that seat is held by Democrat LaFonza Butler. The leading candidates in the race to replace her are U.S. Representatives Katie Porter, Adam Schiff, Barbara Lee, and Republican Steve Garvey. Now, Steve Garvey is the only Republican frontrunner at this time. Remember, the race could be decided on March 5th if one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote. Otherwise, the top two vote getters, regardless of party, will advance to the November election. Now, in the U.S. House, California could be critical in choosing the majority party. Republicans have a 7-seat majority in the House. California's delegation has 40 Democrats, 11 Republicans. All seats are up for grabs every 2 years. One vacant seat, once held by Kevin McCarthy, will have a special election at a later date. And if you do have an election question, make sure you reach out to me and the team. You can always scan that QR code that's up right now. We will have a full night of election coverage with live results on Tuesday, March 5th. Remember, the polls close at 8 p.m. on March 5th. As long as you are in line, you can vote. And if you're mailing in a ballot, the last day to do so is Election Day to make your voice and your vote count. Hey, it's Alex. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. The To The Point team and I love hearing from you, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. And don't forget, you can always email me and the team at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send us a text message at 916-321-3310.